Hello, my name is Dax Gutierrez. This is my presentation for professional communication, my technical report, improvements to engineering courses. So start off with a basic introduction. Why did I choose this topic? Uh, Honestly, I kind of struggled with choosing a topic at first because you were basically told that you should choose something related to your major. So I was like, okay, I guess I should choose something engineering related. And so I did some research and I found out there were actually some problems to a lot of the engineering programs slash courses, not just here in Tamu Cave, but also everywhere in general. And so that's why I chose this topic. So with that said, what we'll be discussing, discussing three sections: expectations from an engineering program. So basically in this section, I'll go over like the target audience for this presentation slash report, like what to what exactly you'll find in an engineering program, challenges, and what happens after complete your degree and whatnot. So that'll lead to the second section, the problems with engineering programs that I found personally. And obviously, I'll go over them in that section. There'll be some research related to it as well. And then in the third section will be solutions to those set problems. And that'll be my personal recommendation slash solution to improving those engineering courses slash programs, which is the title of my my report. So what to gain after this presentation? Hopefully, you'll learn the problems. Obviously, with engineering programs, you'll learn a little more about them and see, hopefully, from a student perspective or whatnot, about how like people wish programs to be a little easier for them. So let's start with our first section: what to expect from an engineering program. So we'll start off with the types of engineering programs. So basically, this will be like the target audience for this presentation slash report. So this will be focused primarily on the Bachelor of Science. And obviously, I pulled this whole chart from the Kingsville website or university website about all the different types of engineering degrees, science, Bachelor of Science degrees related to it, and whatnot. It'll be related to anyone who's taking these uh, programs or courses here. So the challenges of these courses that or these programs that I found, they're mainly two. So obviously, in any like degree, the hardest thing will be your classes, of course. But in engineering degrees and programs, I found that STEM courses are typically your hardest classes. Obviously, you've taken them since middle school, high school. But in college, they're especially the most challenging courses in the degree. And I found some research that they're responsible for many failures and dropouts, especially for calculus and physics. My report, I forgot where I sourced it from, but they said that over about like 25% of people fail from like STEM, these like tough STEM courses, and they'll like fail or drop out. And obviously, that's not good. So that's obviously a huge challenge. I'll go over more of that about why it's a huge challenge in the problem section. And another challenge, obviously, is commitment to help prepare for your careers. But engineering, you need a lot of commitment in not just your classes, but also outside your classes, internships, whatnot. And so after engineering program, obviously, you got to find a job. Just put some examples of my engineering jobs, technicians, design, construction, etc. But I also did some research that showed that up to 75% of people with engineering degrees don't work in their respective fields. So I wonder why that's the case. So I asked, are current engineering programs effective then? And so let's go to our next section here. Perfectly leads to problems with engineering programs. So the first problem I found was resources. And so the two general resources I split up are professional networking and tools. And so obviously professional networking, it's a good way to connect with other engineers and explore more options for your career. And so these are usually like organizations such as ASME, which is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and ASCE, which is American Society of Civil Engineers. And there is way more, like I stated. Now, these associations are good, but the problem is that not everyone can join because of not meeting requirements, such as your GPA not being high enough, not enough experience, or it's not they just don't got the money to fill out an application or whatnot. And another problem is it could be a possible cause for distraction. That's a personal problem for me because I haven't joined an association yet, but that's because I don't want to get too distracted from my courses. And so obviously next section will discuss the solution of that. And back to this. So another problem resources are tools. And examples of tools include calipers, 3D printers, multimeters. Now the main problem with this is accessibility. Now I'm not saying the school doesn't have access to this, but you won't have access to these from the beginning. And so obviously I think it would be more helpful if students have more access to this. And so I'll discuss more about that in the solution section. So let's move on to professors. So obviously this doesn't apply to every single professor out there, but let's just say if a student fails class, should full responsibility fall on them? And obviously that will depend on the student themselves. Like what if they did nothing, then yeah, they deserve to fail. But what if they actually try, but it's just not enough because either the class is too hard or the way the professor taught the class or scaled the class. And so I did some research, and research from Authority shows that engineering professors have a 5% less rating average than professor ratings for all subjects. So obviously, 5% might not seem a lot to some people, but in my opinion, 5% is a lot. And so I obviously thought, what are some problems with engineering professors? And so some common problems include their teaching style, the way they teach the class. Sometimes they might not be able to understand the professor, or a professor might teach the class differently than other professors do. And then accessibility, this kind of goes back to the previous problem with resources. Say like you're taking a class where you need like a lab, you need like specific tools, but you don't have those tools. So then the lab's just not good, but the professor wants you to do the lab anyways. That could be a common problem. And then I think the biggest one, which I'll go over in my solution section, would be the course weight percentage of grades, where a test might be weighted more than might be weighted too much, and like other assignments might be weighted way too low. And then another problem would be communication. Obviously, this will depend on the type of professor and whatnot. So let's move on to the next section. Lack of group work and stress. This is mainly for classes early on in the degree, especially STEM classes, because those have to do with those you gotta do a lot of individual work from my experience. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have experienced that as well. And so obviously later on in your job, you're gonna have to work with people, especially in the engineering business. And so I personally think there should be more group work in a lot of classes. A good example of group work would be obviously labs, but there are more ways to solve this problem, which we'll discuss later on next section. And so the last problem is a common problem in a lot of basically all programs, stress. And from this chart here, I found that stress for engineers are on a more higher scale. Maybe not as high scale as other jobs, but it can be pretty high. And so obviously to succeed, you want to be committed, but sometimes too much commitment may lead to stress. And so luckily though, there are a lot of solutions to mental stress, which I'll discuss in the next section. So we'll be talking about solutions to problems in engineering programs. So improving access to resources. So these are my personal recommendations to improving these problems. So one of them would be to advertise the need to join engineering associations. I see these on my student email all the time, but like, what if someone doesn't access the email all the time? In my opinion, there should be representatives from these associations or even people who are not associations just to advertise them, just to go into classes and say, hey, we're ASME or whatever association is looking for people to join, so you should join. And that's something very simple you could do to improve access to professional networking. And then as for tools, I say there should be some seminars for anyone to join to have more hands-on experience with tools, because obviously later on in your career you need to buy those tools for your job. But if you're a student, then I say, like, before you do a class that uses those tools, such as engineering measurements, you should have like some kind. You should like there should be seminars for like those classes if you haven't taken them yet. And so another recommendation I have is to make the application process easier for joining associations. So like make the fee less or just make the instructions more clear. That's one of my recommendations. So let's move on to the next section. Okay, so improving positive ratings for professors. So this is the big one I want to talk about. The biggest solution, in my opinion, would be weight grades on a fair basis. So I have an example here. So right here is my material science weight grades, weighted grades. So like the exams, they're worth the same. I say that's fair. And like everything else is like 40. It's like a 60-40 ratio of exams to other grades. But in here, so it's for my thermo class, thermodynamics, everything's weighted on grades or on exams. And I just show this to like a high schooler or someone who like wants to start college, and obviously they're probably going to be a little terrified of this. And so that's why I say you should probably make everything a little more spread out, a little more equal, I guess. Just don't make everything based on like exams. Just make at least 50% and not 90% of your course. And so that's my biggest solution, just weight grades on a fair basis. Then some other solutions I came up with were more career-like scenarios for assignments. So like basically just projects that are related to your course. And then for professors that reach out to students, giving them more opportunities to work together. And now lead to my next section, improving group work efficiency and stress durability. So in my opinion, to improve group work efficiency, I say offer like a class that enforces more teamwork in engineering environments. Obviously, currently I'm a junior slash like late sophomore in in my degree right now, so there might be a class later on like that. But to like prepare for those classes, I say like offer a class early on in your degree that forces more teamwork. So there are solutions to group work efficiency. Obviously, would be study groups, but I say like for these study groups, make make them like related to like not just your class, but to like something of like outside interest. Like if you like the same games, like the same TV shows or whatnot, make study groups like that. And obviously reward students for working with others, maybe make some like extra credit stuff, something like that. That's kind of related to the previous section of proving professor ratings. And then for stress durability, offer more social opportunities to reduce stress. So I've seen some emails about like, actually I just saw an email recently today about like a stress-free event or whatnot. They should make more stuff like that in the university, and maybe even for some professors, they should do that. Speaking of professors, they should also gauge a student's well-being outside of class. That's a solution I think they should have. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you for watching, and I hope you gained a lot from this presentation. That is all.